Before we, Mr. Metzler, where's Mr. Metzler? Oh yeah, you have prepared your paper, but we still need some more introductory remarks. A few points I mentioned last time, I state them in a very general way again. If we start from our situation today, which affects all political matters, as well as all thinking about political matters, we can say that we are the contemporaries of the greatest triumph of rationalism. And at the same time, we are more obviously aware of the hollowness of that triumph. The original project of that rationalism was this: man's universal and lasting happiness should be brought about by the conquest of nature, by the production of abundance and all its implications. That is still around and by no means insignificant, but to speak only of the most obvious level, the awareness is today more common that abundance and its implication and freedom and all the other things are not sufficient to solve the problem of the individual. But here modern man has developed a supplement to the political and social arrangements, and that is psychology, especially in the form of psychoanalysis. Adjust the dissatisfaction with society, however satisfactory society may be, is a lack of adjustment. And therefore one has to bring about adjustment by psychopathological means. I mention a few other points which illustrate the situation. For example, there is the project of a science of public administration, which claims to bring about a degree of efficiency which pre-scientific public administration is incapable to achieve. In the words of Herbert Simon, who is especially responsible for their development, the older view and the older thought of public administration is based on a kind of popular wisdom, proverbs. That has to be replaced by a scientific study of public administration. If we look a bit behind this formula, we see this: a human activity which was traditionally thought to be a sphere of common sense, it belongs to the sphere of common sense, of practical wisdom, of prudence, is now to be taken over by science. And that is of general application. The distinction between practical wisdom or prudence and science has lost its evidence. This has something to do with what I said last time about the abolition of the difference between theory and practice, between theoretical sciences and practical sciences. Practical sciences were meant to be forms of practical wisdom or prudence. This distinction has lost its significance. One other example is the substitution of prediction, scientific prediction, for guesses. Guesses, informed guesses of experienced men, are regarded as inferior to genuine predictions, and they would be inferior if predictions were possible. Behind the basis of this whole project, as it is still very powerful today, is this: there is no essential difference between man and the brutes, between life and non-life. This is, at first glance, there are very striking differences, we all know, but the more science progresses, the more these differences will prove to be purely provisional. And the project of which you might surely have heard, if only from the daily papers, of thinking machines which, quote, think, unquote, as well as man, or perhaps better than man, is a necessary consequence of it. If there is no essential difference between man and brutes, or between life and non-life, then there cannot be an essential difference between sufficiently clever machines and clever men. I read on the occasion of this meeting here, at Christmas time, of the scientists, a statement made by Norbert Weiner, who is well known as a representative of this view. And I think this statement is very revealing, although I must say, make this remark with a qualification. I have not read the paper by Professor Weiner. I've read only the newspaper report, which may be wrong. But he seems to have said that one of the major dangers to which we are now